The James Cagney mystery finally solved, and it's disturbing. James Francis Cagney, Jr. was born on July 17, 1899, in the teeming, often harsh landscape of New York City's Lower East Side. This wasn't a place of comfort or privilege. It was a crucible where resilience was forged daily. His father, James Sr., was a bartender of Irish descent, a man who struggled to hold down steady work, often leaving the family in precarious financial situations. His mother, Carolyn, of Norwegian-Irish heritage, was the bedrock of the family, a strong, hard-working woman who instilled a sense of duty and perseverance in her children. Growing up in a cramped tenement building on Avenue D was a constant battle against poverty, disease, and the rough realities of urban life at the turn of the century. The streets were Cagney's playground and his proving ground. Young Jimmy was often sickly in his early years, suffering from rickets and other ailments common in overcrowded, unsanitary conditions. This early physical vulnerability, however, seemed to ignite an inner fire, a fierce determination to not just survive, but to thrive. He learned to be scrappy, quick-witted, and self-reliant. While his brothers gravitated towards typical street pursuits, Jimmy had a different kind of energy. Restless, observant, and surprisingly artistic. He excelled in drawing and harbored dreams of attending art school. He attended Public School 34 and Stuyvesant High School, demonstrating an intelligence and curiosity that set him apart. To help support his family, he took on a staggering variety of odd jobs from a young age, working as a copy boy for the New York Sun, a bellhop, a bundle boy at Macy's, a dispatcher, even assisting a surveyor. Each experience added layers to his understanding of human nature and the world, shaping the complex individual he was becoming. The grit of his upbringing, the constant need to hustle and adapt, unquestionably forged the resilience and the intense need for control that would later define him, both on and off screen. The journey from these humble, challenging beginnings to the dazzling lights of Hollywood was improbable, built on sheer determination and a hidden wellspring of talent. Cagney's path to stardom wasn't paved with gold. It was a winding road through the vibrant, demanding world of show business, starting not in dramatic theaters, but in the raucous realm of vaudeville. This was the popular entertainment of the era, a non-stop parade of singers, dancers, comedians, and novelty acts. Cagney's entry into this world was almost accidental. While working as a baggage handler for a department store, he happened upon a stage door and, on a whim, auditioned for a show. Surprisingly, for a man who would become synonymous with tough guy roles, his very first professional gig in 1919 was as a performer in a revue called Every Sailor. He was initially hired as a dancer, and in a memorable twist of fate, famously dressed as a woman and sang in the chorus. This early experience showcased his natural rhythm and stage presence, even if it was in an unexpected guise. Yes, James Cagney, the future screen gangster, got his start in show business performing in drag. The vaudeville circuit was a relentless grind, demanding incredible stamina, timing, and versatility. Performers often did multiple shows a day, moving from town to town. This grueling schedule honed Cagney's incredible energy, impeccable timing, and innate stage presence. He quickly moved beyond chorus work, forming a song and dance duo with his future wife, Frances Willard Billy Vernon. Their connection was immediate, forged in the shared experience of the road. They married in 1920, a partnership that would endure for an astonishing 66 years, ending only with Cagney's death. Billy was also a performer, a dancer and actress, and she understood the demands and uncertainties of the entertainment world. Seeking more substantial acting opportunities, Cagney transitioned from vaudeville to more legitimate theater. He gained valuable experience in stock companies before landing increasingly prominent roles on Broadway. His breakthrough on the Great White Way came in 1929 with the play Penny Arcade. Although the play itself had a short run, Cagney's electrifying performance as a street punk drew rave reviews. Critics noted his explosive energy and naturalistic delivery, a stark contrast to the more formal acting styles prevalent at the time. It was this performance that caught the eye of Warner Brothers executives, who were scouting for talent to bring to the talkies. Signed to a contract with Warner Brothers in 1930, Cagney arrived in Hollywood initially pegged as a song and dance man, reflecting his vaudeville and early Broadway background. His first few films like Sinner's Holiday and The Doorway to Hell saw him in supporting roles, often playing characters similar to his Penny Arcade role. But even in these brief appearances, his unique energy, rapid-fire delivery, and undeniable screen presence stood out. He had an authenticity, a kinetic force that grabbed the audience's attention. However, he quickly bristled against the studio system's rigid control and low pay for contract players. Warner Brothers was known for its efficient, factory-like production, and actors were often treated as disposable assets. Cagney, forged in the tough streets of New York and hardened by the Vaudeville Road, was not someone who easily submitted to authority or unfair treatment. He quickly earned a reputation as a fighter, demanding better roles, better pay, and more creative input. These early clashes with the studio over contracts and artistic freedom were a clear precursor to the absolute command he would seek over his private world. Then came the role that didn't just make him a star, but cemented his legendary status and irrevocably linked him to the gangster archetype. In 1931, James Cagney starred in The Public Enemy. The film was part of a wave of gritty pre-code gangster pictures. But Cagney's portrayal of Tom Powers was something new. He imbued the character with a dangerous charisma, a reckless ambition, and a raw, volatile energy that was utterly captivating. He wasn't just a villain, he was a force of nature, a product of his environment. The film is immortalized by one particular scene, the infamous moment where Cagney shoves half a grapefruit into Mae Clark's face during a breakfast argument. This wasn't in the original script. It was an improvisation born out of Cagney's frustration with repeated takes and his instinct for raw, unpredictable behavior. The scene was shocking for its time, a brutal depiction of domestic violence that instantly became cinema history and defined Cagney's on-screen persona as dangerously dynamic and capable of sudden, violent acts. It perfectly captured the brutal, impulsive energy he brought to the role and to the screen. The Public Enemy catapulted him to superstardom overnight. He became the definitive screen gangster of the early 1930s, starring in a string of successful and influential crime films for Warner Brothers, like Taxi, Blonde Crazy, and later, the iconic Angels with Dirty Faces and the Roaring Twenties. In these roles, he wasn't just playing criminals. He was embodying a new kind of urban realism, bringing authenticity and unexpected depth to characters who were often products of societal failure. His walk, his rapid-fire dialogue delivery, his ability to shift from charming ease to explosive rage in an instant, these were his trademarks, captivating audiences worldwide. But Cagney was more than just a tough guy. He loathed being typecast and constantly fought for diverse roles, pushing Warner Bros. To see his range. He wanted to sing. He wanted to dance. He wanted to do comedy. He was suspended multiple times by the studio for demanding better scripts and fairer terms, famously walking out on his contract. This was not a passive actor. This was a man who understood his worth and was willing to fight tooth and nail for his autonomy in a system designed to suppress it. His triumph in breaking typecasting came in spectacular fashion in 1942 with Yankee Doodle Dandy, where he portrayed Broadway legend George M. Cohan. This biographical musical was a major departure, showcasing Cagney's roots in song and dance, a side of him many filmgoers hadn't fully seen. His performance was a masterclass in energy, showmanship, patriotism, and, yes, spectacular, self-taught dancing. It was hailed as a triumph, earning him the Academy Award for Best Actor. He famously imitated Cohan's unique style, even his walk. This victory solidified his position not just as a star, but as one of the greatest, most versatile, and most independent actors of his generation. He continued to deliver memorable performances throughout the 1940s and 50s in films like White Heat, where he played the psychotic gangster Cody Jarrett in another unforgettable, explosive performance, and Mr. Roberts, showcasing his dramatic range. He was a force on screen, a bundle of unpredictable energy that captivated audiences. Yet, as his public star soared, and his professional battles for control raged against the studio system, his private life retreated further into the shadows, building a wall of privacy that would later reveal a different kind of control altogether. While his on-screen persona was all about explosive action, public displays of power, and undeniable charisma, James Cagney's personal life presented a stark contrast. He was famously private, almost reclusive, especially as his career peaked. At the center of this intensely private world was his marriage to Frances Willard "Billy" Vernon. Their union lasted an astonishing 66 years, from 1920 until Cagney's death in 1986. On the surface, it was held up as a model of stability and longevity in the often fleeting and tumultuous world of Hollywood marriages. They adopted 2 children, James Jr. and Kathleen, completing their family unit. Eschewing the superficial glitz and relentless social demands of Hollywood parties and the typical star lifestyle, the Cagneys preferred the quiet solitude of their farms. They owned properties first in Martha's Vineyard, then in New York, and later a large ranch in California. Cagney developed a deep and genuine love for farming, raising cattle, and horses, finding solace and purpose away from the pressures and artificiality of the cameras and the studio system. This retreat to rural life was well known and often interpreted as a sign of Cagney's down-to-earth nature, a preference for a simple, grounded existence away from the frenzy of fame. It painted a picture of a man who, despite his public fire, was fundamentally content with domesticity, hard work on the land, and quiet pursuits like painting and writing poetry. This was the image carefully presented and widely accepted. As time has passed, and whispers turned into more detailed accounts from those who spent significant time inside that fiercely protected world, household staff, longtime employees on the farms, family acquaintances, and later, biographers delving into the less explored corners of his life, a different, far less idyllic picture has begun to emerge. The intense privacy wasn't just about seeking peace or a simple life. For some, it was about control. And the simple, grounded life held secrets that weren't so serene. Secrets that, when illuminated by recent perspectives and cumulative accounts, reveal a truth about James Cagney that is profoundly unsettling, challenging the long-held public perception. So, what is this mystery finally being solved? And why is it considered disturbing? The mystery lies in the stark, almost alarming divergence between the public image of the dynamic, approachable star, the Yankee Doodle dandy, or the tough but charming gangster, and the cumulative accounts depicting a deeply complex, potentially rigid, demanding, and even cold man behind closed doors. For decades, Cagney successfully cultivated an image of professional rigor on set and simple, rural contentment off it. This was the public narrative, carefully maintained by his reclusive lifestyle and avoidance of intrusive interviews. But according to several biographies written since his death, and particularly accounts from those who worked for him or were close to the family in his later, most private years, the reality of his private life was far less tranquil and far more tightly controlled by Cagney himself, in ways that some found deeply unsettling and emotionally taxing. Recent perspectives and deeper dives into his life, pieced together from interviews and purported private papers, suggest that Cagney's well-documented need for control wasn't limited to his career, his contract battles, or his public image. It allegedly permeated every single aspect of his private world, extending particularly to his relationship with his wife, Billy Vernon. Let's be clear, this isn't about sensational, easily verifiable scandals like extramarital affairs or public breakdowns that defined the downfall of some stars. The disturbing aspect of Cagney's reality isn't about fitting a common Hollywood narrative of salacious scandal in that sense. It's more insidious, more subtle, and perhaps more psychologically complex. It's about the alleged power dynamic within his marriage, the emotional climate within his home, and the pervasive level of control he reportedly exerted over his immediate family and household. Accounts from people who spent significant time at the Cagney farms paint a picture that clashes sharply with the serene rural retreat often portrayed. They describe an atmosphere that could be stifling, often thick with tension, dictated by Cagney's moods and his absolute, unwavering insistence on strict order, routine, and personal control. What was publicly seen as a peaceful retreat for quiet hobbies was, to some inside that world, almost a form of isolation, particularly for Billy. According to some sources, Billy Vernon, despite the remarkable length of their marriage, became increasingly, perhaps even pathologically, dependent on Cagney over the decades. Stories circulate of Cagney making all the major decisions, controlling finances with a legendary tightness, and even dictating seemingly minor aspects of Billy's daily life. What looked like a traditional, stable marriage from the outside is now viewed by some who claim to have been on the inside as a relationship where one partner, James Cagney, held overwhelming, perhaps total, power and dictated the terms of existence for the other. The man known for his explosive, unpredictable energy on screen was, in his private life, reportedly a meticulous perfectionist with an extremely low tolerance for deviation from his expectations or challenges to his authority. Sources close to the family in later years, quoted in various biographies, have recounted instances of sudden, sharp outbursts of temper over seemingly trivial issues, or a chilling, punitive withdrawal of affection and communication when things weren't precisely as he wanted them. This wasn't the jovial, accessible star of the movies, easily switching from tough guy to song and dance man. This was a man who allegedly demanded his immediate world conform precisely to his strict internal order and preferences. The accounts suggest that while he could be charming and generous, there was a pervasive undercurrent of rigidity and a demand for absolute compliance that created a tense living environment. One particular biography, drawing on interviews with former household staff, delves into the nature of their relationship, suggesting that Billy, though possessing her own strengths, often deferred completely to Cagney's will, her own identity and independence perhaps becoming subsumed by his dominant personality and the highly structured life he created for them away from the public eye. The narrative emerging from these accounts isn't one of equal partnership and shared decisions, but of a life meticulously orchestrated and controlled by James Cagney, with Billy largely living within the often narrow confines of that structure. There are persistent accounts from staff members at their homes who described a palpable, quiet apprehension when Cagney was present, a constant need to tread carefully around his moods and demands. While he could be gracious, his temper was said to be quick and intense, and his displeasure deeply uncomfortable to witness or be on the receiving end of. These aren't just fleeting, isolated anecdotes. They form a recurring pattern described by multiple people who were privy to his private behavior over the years, painting a consistent picture that contradicts the public image of a relaxed country gentleman. This is what brings us back to the mystery and the disturbing aspect. The mystery wasn't what he was hiding in terms of sensational scandals, but who he was in his most private realm. It's the mystery of a man whose public persona as an energetic, spontaneous, almost carefree performer was potentially a carefully maintained facade, a masterful performance masking a private reality of intense control, emotional rigidity, and perhaps a less warm, more demanding, even overbearing personality than anyone outside his immediate, tightly controlled circle could have possibly imagined. The disturbing part is the realization that the man the world adored for his raw, authentic energy and dynamism on screen might have lived a life off-screen marked by a stifling, controlling need for command, potentially dominating and overshadowing the life of his loyal wife for decades within their isolated world. It forces us to confront the uncomfortable possibility that the carefully curated privacy wasn't just about valuing solitude and a simple life. It was, at least in part, about safeguarding the cherished public image from the uncomfortable, potentially jarring truths of the private man and the dynamics within his home. It paints a picture of a life perhaps less about mutual fulfillment and shared happiness and more about one person's absolute dominion over their immediate environment and personal relationships. These aren't simply wild rumors or tabloid fabrications. They are interpretations drawn from the cumulative, consistent accounts of individuals who were closer to the reality of the Cagney household than the adoring public could ever be. They reveal a man who was as much defined by his need for internal order, structure, and control off-screen as he was by his explosive, seemingly untamed energy on it. And for some, that contrast, that hidden rigidity and alleged control, is a genuinely disturbing aspect of his remarkable, yet complex, legacy. After a brief, critically acclaimed return to film in the early 1980s following a long retirement, including a powerful role in Ragtime which earned him critical accolades and another Oscar nomination, and a final appearance in the TV movie Terrible Joe Moran, James Cagney largely retreated back to his farms permanently. His health began to decline significantly in his final years. The physical toll of age and various ailments began to catch up with the man whose on-screen energy seemed boundless. He suffered from diabetes, chronic heart problems, and a series of strokes that gradually weakened him. The vibrant fire that defined him on screen slowly but inevitably waned. He spent his last years battling these ailments, living a quiet, though according to some accounts, still rigidly structured, life on his property in Stanfordville, New York. He continued his hobbies of painting and writing as his health allowed, maintaining his intense privacy until the very end. James Cagney passed away peacefully at home on March 30th, 1986, at the age of 86 from a heart attack. His death marked the end of an extraordinary era in Hollywood history. He was laid to rest in the Gate of Heaven Cemetery in Hawthorne, New York, after a funeral service attended by close family and friends. Tributes poured in from across the world, from fellow actors, directors, politicians, and millions of fans, all honoring his incredible talent, his unique screen presence, and his indelible mark on cinema history. He was universally praised as a legend, a professional, and a fiercely independent actor who embodied the American spirit. Even in death, the carefully constructed public narrative persisted. The tough guy with a soft spot for his farm, the private man who valued solitude. But for those beginning to piece together the fuller, more complex picture from within that private world through later accounts, the end of his life also represented the closing chapter on a deeply complex. James Cagney remains undeniably one of the most important, influential, and beloved figures in the history of American cinema. His performances are timeless, his energy unmatched, and his contribution to the art form is immense and enduring. He is rightly celebrated as a master of his craft. But as we look back on his life today, armed with the insights and accounts that have emerged since his passing, particularly from those who witnessed his private reality, we can no longer ignore the complex mystery that shrouded his personal world. It is the mystery of a man whose outward dynamism and fight for professional control was potentially balanced by an inward rigidity and a deep-seated, pervasive need for personal command that shaped the lives of those closest to him. The solution to that mystery isn't a simple, titillating scandal, but a more nuanced, and for some, profoundly disturbing realization about the full, complex human being behind the screen legend. It's a powerful reminder that even the brightest, most charismatic stars in Hollywood's galaxy can harbor private complexities, internal tensions, and hidden truths that remain concealed for decades by carefully constructed barriers of privacy, only to be revealed later, forcing us to re-examine the dazzling public image and ponder the often unseen human being beneath the stardust. His story, when the layers are peeled back and the contrasting accounts are considered, is a fascinating, if somewhat unsettling, glimpse into the hidden costs of fame, the nature of control, and the enduring mysteries that lie buried within the private lives of old Hollywood's greatest icons.